bit of housekeeping. Yeah, I'll try and keep everyone on mute to avoid background noise. If you do want to ask a question, either raise your hand or just jump in with a question. I think what we agreed is that we'll have a little prompt at the end of each section as well in case anyone does have questions. A croeso chi ofyn unrhyw gwestiwn yn Cymraeg hefyd, and I'll translate if any questions get asked in Welsh. So you're more than welcome to ask in whichever language you feel more comfortable in. So I'll share my screen now. Just to go through a couple of slides introducing the project. I think we do have a couple of new faces here today, so thank you for joining. So I'm Kiki Rees-Stavros. I'm the project manager on the Welsh Government Smart Towns Wales programme. I work for a social enterprise called Menter Morn, which is based on Anglesey, but has projects like Smart Towns, which are cover the whole of Wales as well. We've got three main project areas, from renewable energy and economy to community, but everything that we do really feeds back into the idea of prosperous communities and supporting the local community and language. So like I said, I'm Kiki. I'm joined on this call by my colleagues, Rhian, who's responsible for the north, and Sarah, south. And we offer all kinds of different levels of support, really. So from giving kind of one-to-one advice and workshops, networking events. I also like to share all the success stories from across Wales. I think it's really important for people to learn from what others are doing, from things that have gone well and from things that haven't gone as well. And we have all kinds of tools and resources on our website as well for you to check out. Some of you today might be wondering what is actually a smart town. So put simply, it's about using information or data from different sources, so from sensors, Wi-Fi systems, all kinds of data really. But the smart part comes in when you actually use that data to make smarter decisions. So the smart bit is data-driven decision making, which comes from the community engagement work that we do and others do in the field as well, with the goals being business enhancement, improved public services, and long-term sustainability of a business or a town even, or even a county. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of Smart Towns. Please do follow us and keep up to date with all the events and things we've got going on, because we do have lots of workshops like this. But for now, I will pass you over to Joe and Carl. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So good morning, everybody. I'm going to share my screen, so please shout if you cannot see this. Bear with me a second. There we go. So hopefully you can all see my screen now. Got a thumbs up from Kiki, so that's great. We'll start off with some introductions. Carl, do you want to start us off?
Sure, yes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. Yes, my name's Carl Loveday. I'm a senior UX designer at Box UK. I've been here for about 3 years, and it's been a good role, and worked in many different Welsh Gov and similar projects alongside Joe. So working on many different websites in the past. I've worked in many different verticals, from fintech, public health, media, and law and things like that. So yeah, looking forward to sharing what we know and what we've made from data-driven decision making today.
Great, thanks, Carl. And my name is Joe Pilgrim. So I've worked at Box UK for 2 years as a senior product owner, which means it's my job to focus on clients' requirements, ensure they're prioritised appropriately and accordingly. I work with Carl and other great colleagues with clients of all different shapes and sizes, and have a background in teaching and data analytics. So let's kick off with an introduction to Box UK. Who are we? Where have we come from? The first thing to say is the slides here are quite wordy on purpose. Don't worry, we're not going to read out them verbatim to you. But They've been done that way so that we can share them at the end if you're interested, so you can read back through them in your own time without having to make copious amounts of notes as we go along. So let me give you a short introduction of who we are at Box. So we've got 20 years plus experience of working on solutions and applications for many varied clients. We've got a keen focus on delivering like real value for money. We do this by building a digital strategy which tries to link business goals and objectives with tangible and measurable deliverables. That's where the data comes in, utilizing digital technologies and solutions. So we really believe that like understanding your data is key to unlocking new opportunities to grow your business and to deliver your targets and to be innovative, to keep up with the competition. And we feel that that's why we've got really like long-term strong relationships with our clients, some that have extended for over 15 years. Okay, so this presentation is all about data, and data is of course very important. And it's everywhere. So the amount of data consumed worldwide is growing exponentially. You know, it's more and more pervasive in our lives. I've got some fun stats to start us off with today. So according to GWI.com, as of January 2024, 2/3 of the world's population has a mobile phone. Internet usage is up 3.2% in the last 12 months, and interestingly, 7.2% in rural areas in particular. The average an individual spends on the internet per day is 6 hours 40 minutes. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm probably even higher than that, sitting at my desk day in, day out. But why is that important? So obviously, with all of this data that people are consuming, the amount of data that we can collect is also increasing as businesses and organizations. In fact, the volume of data collected is apparently doubling every 2 years, which is quite a scary thought. But what's not scary, and which is really great and we should celebrate, is that Wales is trying to make the most of this opportunity. So as you know, a relatively small country, we've actually got quite a lot of initiatives to really try and harness the power of data for the public good. And as it says there, to bridge the digital divide. So you've got organisations like Data Cymru, who've got interactive dashboards related to public data, such as health, population, and language statistics. Really interesting to have a look at some of those. Public Health Wales also has a remit to report and visualise key public information in their data sphere. You've got Superfast Business Wales, encouraging businesses to make the most of the digital revolution, harnessing the power of digital tools. And of course, the more digital tools we use, the more data we collect, the more data we can potentially learn from and do something with. And that leads us into smart towns, which, as Kiki was saying, is a way of having access to data that's regionalized and local to where we are, to try and learn to gain some insights from them. We're going to go into that more as we go along. Okay, so seeing the bigger picture, that's great. So the take-home message on the last slide, we've got lots of data, but what can we do with it? Well, it's only useful, we think, if you can control it. And one way of controlling the data and understanding it is to use a framework. One framework that we use at Box is goals, signals, and metrics. So let me just walk you through what these are if you're unfamiliar with these terms. So the goal is simply just the key goal for the business. So in this example here, I've said to increase the number of midweek customers by 50%. Now that seems like a realistic goal that a business might have over maybe a 12-month period. Next, we've got signals. So this is telling us whether we are on the right track or not. Obviously, it's great to have a goal over 12 months, but it's not great to know if we haven't actually met it until those 12 months are up. We want to know that we're making progress, and that's what the signal does. It gives us an insight into whether we're on track to achieve our goals or not. So for example, taking the last one, to increase the number of midweek customers by 50%, maybe the number of views and interactions on social media posts related to a midweek specific deal might be a signal that might turn into customers in future. And then lastly is the metric. This is the underlying data, the key numbers, which informs us whether we've met our goal. So in this example, the profit earned from Monday to Friday on a rolling monthly average. And you'd hope you'd see an increase of that as you go through those 12 months to ultimately deliver on your goal. So that's one way how you can link a goal with signals and with metrics. And it also tells you how you can prove or disprove a goal or something that you want to achieve in the future. So at Box UK, obviously, we have access to lots of data. As I said earlier, we work with clients of all different shapes and sizes, and they collect data. They all use their own different tools, their own software, their own solutions. So we focus on online data. We help clients understand their online users better. The reason being because we want to link this back to the business goals, just like we were talking about on the last slide, and hopefully, and crucially, suggest ways in which we can improve the website to help to achieve those business goals in a cost-effective way. So website data allows us to do a few things. It allows us to tell the client where their users are coming from. It allows us to highlight what browsers and devices they're using. Well, why is that important? Because it means that we can make improvements and we can focus those improvements on the devices and browsers that the customers are using. So say, for example, we discover that 3/4 of the customers are using a mobile phone to access the website. Well, it makes sense to put in place solutions that run well on mobile phones. And they're things that we can track over time and make sure they're having the desired effect. We can also specify which elements on the websites are being used and which ones are being ignored, because there's no point in spending, valuable time and money and resource on areas of the website that no one actually goes to. We also like to measure feedback and reputation of the site. That's very important. And crucially, see the metrics moving over time using data visualizations. So I said earlier, I've got a data background and I'm a self-confessed number geek, but I know that it's more powerful to have conversations with key stakeholders across an organization if there's something to look at, something visual, graphs, lines, charts, colors, that sort of thing, and preferably greens rather than reds. I've discovered that stakeholders like lots of green rather than red. So all of the above is achieved using cost-effective or freely available tools. We know that budgets are tight, so we look for the tools that are free or typically freemium models. And we work with the clients to analyze the findings and prioritize the changes that will offer them the most value for money. So the idea is with these insights, we're learning all the time, and then we can maybe produce the solutions that are going to have the biggest impact. But how do we know which will improve the most? How do we know which solutions or ideas will have the most impact? Well, that's exactly what one of our clients asked us. They had exactly that question. They thought they had some good ideas. They thought that we had some good ideas, but they didn't know, crucially, which ones to try first and which ones they were confident would have the biggest and the greatest impact on the metrics that mattered to them to help them achieve their goals. So we decided we needed to develop a test-driven approach. This would hopefully give everyone confidence that what we were going to develop was going to deliver on their expectations. So there's a few bullet points here that I'd like to just run through of why we wanted to do it and what we hoped we would get out of it for ourselves and for the clients that we work with. So they needed us to develop a way to trial solutions before they went to market. Development can be costly. It can take a long time to deliver things. But actually, if we can do a quick proof of concept that gets us 50% of the way there, and we can see if people like it or not, well, then we know whether it's worth investing that next 50%. We wanted the client to have confidence that that investment that they were making in the big new features was going to have that desired impact. Now, the approach needed to focus on real world users and figures. And they wanted us to prototype and test new or improved features on specific audiences and areas of the site. So the clients that we work with, they take a lot of time and they develop their brand. They might not want something that's a proof of concept sitting right on their homepage. They might want it to sit on a page that gets some decent traffic so that we can gain an understanding, but is sort of hidden away until people click on it. We also wanted this to be a collaborative approach where we could really engage and involve the key stakeholders so they would feel like their ideas were listened to. And if they had a bright idea, that there was a vehicle, an opportunity for them to bring to us and we could make it happen, or at least we could test whether it was worth making it happen. This program needed to use cost-effective or preferably free A/B testing tools and delivery methods. So in June 2022, the Box UK Hypothesis-Driven Development Programme was born. And I believe, Carl, you're going to walk us through this in a bit more detail. Any questions on anything I've covered before Carl jumps into his section? No? Okay, over to you, Carl.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joe. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, I'm going to take the nods and thumbs up as a yes. Right. So, brilliant. Yes. Joe's talked a bit about well, data and how important it is. We know this, and harness it is really important. The thing I just wanted to touch on, in case anyone wasn't aware of, A/B testing tools. What is that? So just quickly, an A/B testing tool is when we have a particular platform and we send out let's say a web page to all of the traffic, but we give out two versions to 50% of the traffic, and from that we see which one is performing better in terms of whether it's got clicks and things like that. So the A/B is, you've got version A, which is normal, and B is just your kind of your test, which we're going to talk about a bit more now. So yes, so what is hypothesis driven development, or as I'm going to say, HDD for short, because it's a bit of a mouthful, and saying that takes quite a long time. So yes, well, it's a collaborative and measurable proven framework for testing business scalable ideas. So we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. It's continuous and iterative. So I think Joe was alluding to, we don't do a big thing over 6 months and hope that it's going to work at the end. We are continually testing and trying to improve with minimal input, but with great value, great return on investment. So again, Joe mentioned we have regular updates to keep everyone involved and informed throughout the process of our testing. So as we can see here in very, very short, hypothesis is we come up with a potential idea of we think this might work. We do an experiment. We might do an A/B test, which is give 50% of the people this and 50% of the people that, and see which works. From that, we gain knowledge and understanding of from our data, from our metrics, whether or not these things are performing well, whether or not they're performing under par, as we might say. From that, we can draw conclusions, and we can go back to the table and come up with new hypotheses or look into new areas where we think the improvements might be. So Joe talked about one of our clients, and one of the things was what was the need for this? So if we could click onto the next slide, please, Joe. Well, as Joe said, I'm not going to read all of these things verbatim, but the thing was there was no program to implement change in place, and there was no cohesive collaboration. It was more reactive change without forward planning. So how do we do this? And no one wants to be in that position. You know, it's better to have a plan and a roadmap as to what you want to do to improve your landscape. There was no framework of what we could change or how we could improve it. And you know, we want to gain return on investment on an incremental scale. So one of the things as an example of that is increasing use for service or product, e.g. let's say an accommodation page on a tourism site, and seeing if we can increase the interaction on that particular page or site to make it more desirable to users. There was a disconnect between the goals and, if any, process. So it's all, you know, if you've got all these great goals you want to achieve, but you don't have a process or a means to kind of work your way through to improving those things. And there wasn't really a measurement of scale, so visualized for the improvement program. So what that means is how well are these changes that we're actually making performing, and what do we know and how do we measure them? So it's all very well having these numbers, but you've got to put a framework in place to understand well, how well are these things performing. So what we did is, how did we change this? So we had the need, now we needed a plan in place. So this was the birth of HDD. What we did is we got together a crack team of people with an interest, and I would say influence as well, because the group must be related to the project in order to make the changes viable and encompass buy-in from different stakeholders. So we ran quarterly HDD sessions for the platform, which was a number of sites, which we're focusing on one. And we used effective alignment for their business communication and collaboration. So we had their team, we had our team, and we worked together quarterly to make sure that we could keep everyone in the loop and informed. We created a simple framework, which we'll be looking through, using known and proven successful techniques created by companies such as Google Ventures, e.g. design sprints, techniques including How Might We's. Now, people might say, but we're not Google, we don't have that budget. Absolutely. But the thing is, you can use these proven techniques in very, very small framework and ideas and teams without any cost, because it's a way of doing things rather than a cost. So we created a step-by-step process that can be followed by any team. So it's not enormously complicated. You don't have to have loads of tech. It's cost effective through using freemium platforms, which Joe was saying, which we'll have a little look at. And there's low cost. So our particular focus is online platforms, but still using real world data. So this is using actual users and visitors to sites. So we get a real world understanding of what's happening, and we can validate our results with real data. So we're going to have a look at a couple of examples of how that looks in practice. So this should give you some more tangible context. So learnings, winning and losing, they both help you understand what to improve and what not to do without massive upfront investment. So by learning that something doesn't work or hasn't won, you know that you don't need to invest any more time in that. The winning learnings, as we can talk about here, are some of the things which we did, which should give you a bit of an understanding. So we added imagery to website survey pop-ups. So before they were kind of, let's put pop-ups out, we'll put some text in it and hope that people click on it. So okay, it's getting traction, but maybe we can make that more desirable to people. Humans are visual creatures, and essentially we're drawn to more things that we can see. So by adding imagery to the survey pop-ups which appeared, it actually increased by 81% in terms of engagement. So that's a big leap. And when you do that on one pop-up or you do it on other things, you can see the kind of increase in metric engagement that you get. So we implemented that across the pop-ups, rather than just one. We said this test worked, let's put it across the rest. We added a follow me bar. So just to give you an understanding, on the product page, when you scroll down pages and web pages and mobile phone pages, sometimes things follow you down the page. Now, on this particular product page, it had links which clicked off to email, telephone call, or even a specific website from that particular business. We wanted to ensure that people could do that at any stage as they're reading throughout that page, rather than just have to click or scroll all the way back up to the top. They can just instantly click off and go to that particular page. That, again, on one product page which we tested this, not them all, so it's a very small investment in terms of time and testing, increased 15 to 17%. So that's just on one product. If you have 20, 30, 100, 200 different product type pages on your site, you can see the kind of increased engagement you can scale across doing things like that. So we were like, great, we're happy with that test, let's implement that. Small things. So, we recommend starting small, but you can do small or large changes. We've replaced in-copy website hyperlinks. So we go through pages, we see hyperlinks, we might ignore them, we might move on. So we said, why don't we make these a little bit more interactive and colourful? So we replaced them with some cards which had imagery and were a bit more engaging. and that moved the engagement up to 83% of a conversion rate of people clicking on those rather than the hyperlinks. So as you can see here, we really kind of showed the value in just testing small things, and then we can roll them out across all the other pages and sites that we have in our remit. So the losing learnings, as I said, so we still learn from this. We added extra location markers on a location map on, again, product pages to show nearby related products which we might think might be important. Didn't work. It didn't make any difference. So we said, okay, we don't know the users until we know the users. They weren't interested in that, so we decided we're not going to invest any more time in doing that. People signing up to newsletters, that's always important. We want to engage with our audience. We said, why don't we add a progress bar so people can see how far along, it's only a couple of steps, but they can see how much longer they've got. Actually decreased the conversions. I don't think they really cared. They were just quite happy they were either going to sign up. So we decided, okay, we don't need to add a progress bar. We can go back to the drawing board, as we showed in that iterative cycle, to maybe try something else. So that's the winnings and losing learnings to say. So whether your test is successful or not, you're still learning what your visitorship is doing. Okay, so let's talk about some routes as to how you might do that. Now, obviously, Joe alluded to the fact we're not just talking about digital. The process of HDD and how you can test is not solely just for websites. You can practice this and you can do your quarterly HDD session groups on anything, whether it's a brochure, whether it's a robot you build in your back bedroom, whatever it is. It can be any of those particular things. So from our example, though, we used free off-the-shelf software, which had a freemium layer. And as I said earlier, we used things for updating simple imagery, updating engaging copy, adding or changing content and layouts up to more complex things. And while we're doing this, the platforms which we're using show us conversions and the engagement and metrics that we're getting. So we've integrated it with things like Google Analytics, and also the software packages also tell you how well those things are performing. So we can see regularly, not just at the end, but every day we can go in and have a check, how's this particular thing performing? So if after 15 days, we've decided, or 30 days, we've decided we're not quite sure about this, we can run it on for a little bit longer. Or if it's a clear winner within a week, we're happy with that. So it just gives everyone in the team and through those checking kind of areas an understanding of what's going on, so they can be informed as we go. So there's we can use some of the data on the smart towns dashboard as well, which I think we'll be going into in a sec. But this is kind of the framing of how you could use this particular framework for getting the results you need.
Thank you, Carl. Any questions on anything so far before we move on? No? Okay, let's carry on then into smart towns itself. So Kiki gave us a great introduction into smart towns in her slide. So I won't labour the point. This was what is a smart town from sort of our understanding, which was essentially to an initiative designed to harness data, to offer innovative and efficient facilities and opportunities to local residents. Because it can enhance public services, it can support economic development, allows businesses to make data-driven decisions, ultimately boosting town management, environmental impact, lots of different opportunities that can be unlocked using smart town data. But what smart town data do we have access to? We've broken it down into sort of three key sections. But if you haven't been on the smart towns dashboard, we'd really recommend you go in and have a play around. Wi-Fi hotspots, so we can learn information from things like access points. So identifying where in the town people are connecting to can show you literally where are the hotspots within a town. Demographics, so you can collect information such as age group, gender, home postcode of the users utilizing the access points. Languages, understanding what preferred language of users are using the Wi-Fi. Which ones are returning users or which ones are new users, because that tells us quite a lot as well. And also, if you ask them what the visit purpose is, so determining the reason for them being there on that day. And that leads us into the next section, which is visitor information. So we can learn things about the duration of their visit. How long were they there for? How many were they? You know, what was the visitor count, the number of visitors on any given day? You can see the trends over weeks and months as well. We can see passing through. Were they just passing through the area, or did they stay for a while? And also the traffic type that they used. Did they arrive by car, van, public transport? All really useful and important information for any business or organisation in an area to know who the users are and how they're getting to you. Very similar to sort of what we do on a website, you know, where we look to see where in the world people are and what devices they're using. It's just the same, but just a different type of data. And then lastly, environmental sensor data. So it also collects things like temperature, air quality, humidity, etc., etc. Kiki, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify because you mentioned the Smart Town dashboard.
Yep.
Because obviously we don't have like a central dashboard with everything in it, so people have access to different data based on the projects that they've got going on in their towns. So I didn't want people to think that they're, you know, missing out on something. So I think you might be referring to the Platinum dashboard, which does have information about footfall and demographic information, some sensor information. Other people might have access to a Siskamraki dashboard, which will have like the heat maps and stuff. I just wanted to be clear because I didn't want someone thinking that they've missed something there.
Absolutely. Thanks for that clarification, Kiki.
No
But it
problem, thank you.
it alludes to the point that Carl was making earlier. You know, we've all got access to different data, and you know, it's making
Exactly,
the
yeah.
most of that, isn't it? And HDD is a program that you can use to make the most of the data that you have. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, so we might have access to some of this data. Now, what can we do with it? Let's try and pull it all together. So let's imagine that we had access to some of this data. We wanted to put in place a test. We want to use some of the HDD tools and techniques that Carl was talking us through. And to do that, for this session, we've pulled together an example profile. So we're all going to pretend that we are a local authority running a shopping centre in the centre of a town somewhere in Mid Wales. Okay, so that's who we are today for the purpose of these examples. And we've got a couple of main business problems. So business problem number one is we need to increase the visitor numbers to the town centre. And business problem number two, we need to try and hit carbon neutral by 2030. And we're being encouraged to promote the use of electric cars and public transport. And we're currently unsure of the numbers required for electric charging stations. We believe it might be important, but we don't know whether they will offer return on investment. We don't know where they should go, how many we should put in. So those are the business problems that we're going to try and address today, and use the HDD program framework to try and tackle some of these problems. Okay, so we'll start off with the how might we's. So this is just a way of framing those business problems into questions that we might be able to find or come up with solutions to address. So how might we promote the adoption of electric cars and public transportation among residents? How might we determine the optimal quantity and placement of electric charging stations across the county? And how might we enhance foot traffic and visitor engagement within the town centres without increasing the number of cars? Okay, so those are the things we're going to try and tackle. Okay, and we've got various possible solutions here. So for promoting the adoption of electric cars and public transportation among residents, can we could we send out an information campaign relating to electric car charging via email to residents and measure engagement? Perhaps we could do what Carl suggested and have an A/B test where 50% of the population see version A and 50% see version B, and we can see which one is more effective. Can we offer two types of incentives for subsidised public transport to see which gets the most engagement? To be able to determine the optimal quantity and placement of electric charging stations, can we place QR codes in locations across the county? Oh, I don't know what's just happened there. Bear with me a second. There we go. Google's decided now is a great time to sign out. So please bear with me a second while I just sign in. Don't you just love it when technology tries to help you?
While Joe's wrangling with Google, as we were just singing their praises about the how might we's, but anyway, they maybe they're better at frameworks than they are technology. Who knows? Just going to say, so the how might we's are things that you'd come up with within your working quarterly sessions. So you'd work through a program of, let's say we're going to talk about how might we's, which is the business problems. So you've got your problems and challenges. You talk about your how might we's. And then, as Joe was just about to go into, is then you can come up with some solutions. So this is done in a collaborative approach. So the teams can kind of get together and really voice their thoughts and opinions and really thrash out what the options you can look at. I think, are you ready to go again now, Joe?
Yes, thank you very much, Carl, for adding that context. Yes, absolutely. So we've got some can we's here. The last one that I'll just go through: enhancing foot traffic in town centres without increasing car traffic. Can we run an event with a voucher or discount code for members of the public who show a valid train or bus ticket on arrival? So as Carl was saying, this is something that we could come up with during a collaborative workshop. And then what we'd typically do, we'd have some voting. We would vote on which of these we think would have the greatest impact. It doesn't necessarily mean that we won't test them all. We might get around to testing them all at some point over the next 3 months. But what it tells us is the people in the room that matter the most, the key stakeholders with the influence, as Carl was saying, will have their opportunity to vote on which ones they think will have the greatest impact and which ones they think are the most important and most likely to meet their business goals. So those are some possible solutions there. And then lastly, we've got the, so this is how we develop our hypothesis now. So that last one there, the can we run an event with a discount code, we bring through now into our hypothesis. But before I do it, Gareth, you have a question.
Yes, you showed the diagram earlier, the sort of rolling nature of this HDD.
Mm-hmm.
And you've talked about sort of possibly quarterly implementation, that kind of thing. When you start this off, do you start off with X amount of how might we's, and then as one you might come to a conclusion over a week, do you then replace it, or do you work through all of them and then come up with another one and another set? So in terms of a rolling nature of it, is there always a set number of hypotheses that you're working on, or is it just we go through a phase of them and then we'll review it and then we'll go through another phase and review it?
It's normally the phase review approach. So there's no sort of prescribed number of things that we'd want to test at any one time. It all depends on sort of resource availability. So obviously, we've said that doing this approach is a lot more cost effective than just developing everything to 100%. Get your proof of concept to 50%, put it out as a test. Then while that one is testing, while that one is live, then perhaps start developing your next test. Just get through as many as you can within 3 months. And of course, you might end up then, after that 3-month cycle, there being 1 or 2 that haven't been tested that you might want to bring through again. Maybe they'll be top of the next list. Or maybe you say there's a reason why we didn't get round to those. They weren't voted. Let's come up with something new and innovative and go and test that instead.
Yeah, I might just add to that as well. Although there's no definitive number, I think we have a 3-hour workshop, and we usually break it down from our perspective to, we come up with 3 how might we's, then we come up with solutions. We break that down into 3 possible or 4 solutions, and then that way we can we can then dilute it down into, we usually go for about 3 or 4 hypotheses, because that means that we know we can work on those 3 or 4 through that next period before we jump onto the next, but we've still got the backlog if we get through them and want to bring. But 3 is not the magic number, but it's certainly a good number to keep things, I guess, from a scale that we do from our perspective.
Great point. Thanks, Carl. Okay, so we've got our can we now. So what we do, we take this and say, right, okay, so we've got a problem that we want to address. We've got a potential solution that we think we might want to test. Now we're going to frame it as a hypothesis. Okay, so everyone's trying to like quickly get back to science days at school. What is a hypothesis? We'll walk you through what that might look like. So it's essentially a statement. It's essentially a prediction. So we believe that, and you can even use this template to make sure that it's sort of framed and written how it needs to be. We believe that advertising an event with a special offer for customers who show a bus or a train ticket, for visitors who plan to visit the town on that day, will encourage them to leave the car at home and utilise public transport links. We know this will be true when businesses report customers are utilising their special offer, and the ratio of cars to visitors is lower when the event is running compared to normal. Okay, so we've got some tangible things that we might want to test. And if we think back to the slide where Carl showed us the winning learnings and the losing learnings, you know, they all relate to, we know this will be true when. You know, that's how we know what impact that solution has had. You know, if we see that ratio changing, we know what we've put in place is having an impact. And if it's having a positive impact, then hopefully signals that we're going to meet our goal if we actually rolled this out as a permanent solution, well, then it might be worth further time, consideration, and investment. Any questions on sort of the structure of that, taking a how might we through to possible solutions with a can we into a hypothesis and something ready to test? No? Okay. So just leaves us with the summary. Carl, are you going to take us through this one?
Sure. Let's have a walk through this then, please. Okay, so we talked about how we can come up with a hypothesis or a group of hypotheses that we can work on over the next quarter, or whatever our cadence is for that particular thing. So we want to test manageable assets in a scalable and meaningful environment, much like the things we've talked around with smart towns, whether that's car parks or websites or tickets or coffee shop discount vouchers, any of those things. And we can align those to our business goals, which we've had at the beginning in an efficient way. So the first thing is to, you've created your collaborative group. The group can change and adjust as required based on the goals and needs, and allow buying from all business areas. And that's the main thing. As long as there's sight from key stakeholders, then you've got the opportunity to then make change and do the right thing. Agree the goals and objectives up front. Clarity, share that, so there's a shared understanding amongst the group and any other stakeholders that want to be involved, or even people that are interested. Share the documentation for that cohesive vision. Obviously start small. You don't want to start with a massive scale project. You can start with some small things to get your understanding and get the kind of program running, so you can understand and get more efficient at working through those tests. The value. See where real value can be achieved through the data which you're capturing and the insights. And this is, obviously the ultimate goal is to drive change and understand where you can do this, where it's needed, obviously. Creating momentum, share the learnings, share the experiences, share the goals and the failures. Gives you a better understanding of your environment, whether it's from a digital data impact or from any other kind of metric version. So meeting regularly to continue the process of improvement means that you've got momentum, you keep the knowledge shared within your group, and it just helps the program move throughout. And then, you know, you can have yearly summits to understand how well it's done, or 6-monthly summits, however you want to play that out. And then obviously, you know, the idea and the goal of this is to move the needle to improve your metrics and achieve your goals.
Great, thank you very much, Carl. So where we've done a bit of a whistle-stop tour of something that, you know, Carl and I do on a day-to-day basis. Has anyone got any questions on anything that, you know, regarding sort of data collection, smart towns, hypothesis-driven development, or anything we've covered today? Gareth.
Sorry, me again. Just a quick one. The data collection, is that dependent on people's privacy settings on their devices, if you're looking at sort of things like Wi-Fi hotspots? Or can you still collect some data?
So typically, if you're talking about Wi-Fi hotspots in particular, there will typically be terms and conditions on whatever sign-up page that you have, which will include often, if it's a sort of free Wi-Fi, basic tracking of sort of data usage amounts, device information, nothing identifiable, but enough that might be useful as a business to understand, you know, where people are using them, what time they're using them, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
I think Venus got a question.
I'm not sure if you're the right people to ask, but I'll give it a go. You talk a lot about stakeholders being involved in this process. Who would you say would be the main stakeholders? Because that's something within Project Alpha we've had a lot of debate about, and we haven't necessarily agreed on who would be consulted as stakeholders. Any guidance?
I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. It's so stakeholders can be deemed as anyone with an interest or potential buy-in or influence that might not want to be part of that particular group because either they're too busy, but they may have some influence in how decisions and implementation of said tests might be. So it could be that you've got a group of people and you're working through your particular project and you've come up with a test, and do you know what? Actually, we're going to share this with our program manager, who's not going to come to all sessions, but he might be the person who has the purse strings or the kind of sign off on, yes, we can implement this particular test across scale, because if they've got sight of what you're doing, then they can have the ability to help you make that test become a reality. Is that right, Courtney, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I'd add to that, yeah, absolutely. Those people with influence often know what those business goals are. So, you know, through the presentation, we said it's really important to link the data to the goals and the direction that the organisation wants to go in. So typically those sort of senior stakeholders will have an idea of that sort of longer term view, perhaps, and might be able to steer the prioritisation and voting of some of the solutions and ideas that you're coming up with, because they know what's going to be important down the line.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Just so you're aware, I'm Courtney. I'm from Box UK as well. So I actually am an account manager. So I look after our stakeholders, with Joe and Carl doing all the good work. From my perspective, it depends what business goals you're trying to affect and who owns them within your organisation. Ideally, people that they might not want to get involved in the day-to-day, I would deal with on a consultative basis. So kind of say, look, this is what we're trying to achieve. We'll keep you involved in the outcomes if it kind of warrants it. If you are doing things that need a bit of investment, budget-wise, obviously they're going to want to be involved as well and be consulted throughout the process, particularly when you want to measure the return on investment. So they can report that onwards to whoever it is that they need to report that to, as well as those people that are maybe project managers or people in the industry that you're trying to affect. So it really varies, but I would say you've kind of got different scales of stakeholders. You've got the ones that are doing the work that have to get it completed. You've got the ones on the outside that need to be consulted and just kept abreast of what's happening and any investment and support you might need. And then the ones wider to that are the ones that will want to get the stats for where's that money spent, how's it gone, has it worked, you know. So you've kind of got different layers depending on obviously what it is you're kind of working on as part of the project. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Good.
I like the idea of the different layers. That really helps put things in order. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, I mean, we work with a lot of centralized government, so there's a lot of layers within that. So it's really important to kind of not just be doing stuff by yourself, but actually when this works, as the guys spoke earlier, I mean, we smashed financial targets just this financial year for one of our organizations. That should be shouted about because you've done such a good job to do that, especially in a climate at the moment where things are tight. We're looking for how can we either maximize revenue or save costs. So it's important that those people actually hear about the work that's being done, because then actually you then get investment from those people going, oh, we'll do this again in this area, do this again in that area, let's invest in this. And it's a real snowball effect you end up getting. We started doing this, like say, really small iterative changes. We're actually now looking to take this up to the full digital strategy because of the amount of money that it actually generated from the work that Joe and Carl and the team did. So it is really one of those things that get working, get it small, get it kind of the ball moving, get the wheels greased, and it can scale up as well.
Great. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks for your question, Minna. Anybody else got a question? No? I think we're all good. Okay, so I'll stop sharing there. So as mentioned at the beginning, we have made these slides sort of quite wordy so that we're more than happy to share them, I think through yourself, Kiki, so that if you're interested, you can read back through them and, you know, with full context, so you didn't have to make notes there. But if there's no further questions,
yeah,
leave it there.
I was just one more little thing from myself, Joe. If there is anything that you've got a project in mind and you're not sure where's best place to start, I've said to Kiki, if you want to get in touch with Kiki, by all means, I'm happy for you to have a quick Zoom call, or even if it's just to clarify something over email. Kiki's got my details, so we can set that up. We're more than happy to do that. The first time's usually a little bit, oh, how do we do this? How do we do that? So or where do we start? So we're happy to kind of just assist on that first push to get you going as well.
Brilliant, thank you all. That was really interesting. I'm sure people have questions once they kind of absorb it as well. I think sometimes it could be a case of kind of going back to the slides. So it's really useful that we can contact you as well. Thank you. And obviously welcome to contact me with any questions about smart towns as well. So thank you. I'll send out the slides with a link to the recording. And like we said, yeah, get in touch with us. I wasn't sure if that was a hand up there. Thanks, Isabel. Great, thank you all. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks very
Bye.
much, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.